Actually, with the subject that I'm about to discuss, maybe we all should be somewhat uncomfortable, because what I'm going to be talking about tonight is a situation with which we are all familiar, really the impending and accelerating economic and other crises that are now descending on this country. You can't miss it if you're reading the newspapers, certainly looking at the internet. For a long time, the acme of the presentation of the Bush administration was international terrorism. That was one of the great crises that was facing us. And of course, we have a massive and sustained illegal immigration problem, which is a crisis on many different fronts. We have long had a drug trafficking problem, and that is not just a matter of a transnational illegal business operation that's going on. But if you study it in some detail, it is also a direct attack on America's social structure. So it has a number of political and cultural ramifications. But of most concern to me for many years, and the concern of this particular talk, are two elements of this crisis, which I really think are the foundational elements. These are the ones that pose the greatest immediate threat to us. The first is the instability and really the corruption of our monetary and banking systems. And that is coupled with what I would call an impossible burden of governmental financial obligations and private debt in this country. Now there's another problem which comes under the generic term Homeland Security. And we know that for a long time Homeland Security has been touted as necessary. This development of the Department of Homeland Security and all of this federalization of local police and paramilitarization of the police forces throughout the country was touted as being necessary to deal with some people hiding in caves in Afghanistan. Now I find that rather incredible to believe. If the entire population of Afghanistan came here, it would be a very small dent in the total police forces that we already have. I really look at that as a cover story for a much more sinister prognostication that those people are making, which ties into point number one. They expect this economic system to come down. Does our system have an answer, or really a defense, against these dangers? And the answer is, well, what is it what I'm talking about when I say our system? Well, I'm talking about our constitutional system, our legal system, because that's the source of all authority for any action that the people are going to take, or on the other hand, that the political apparatus is going to take. And when I talk about that set of constituent documents, I have two in mind. Most people think only of the Constitution, but actually there's a preceding document called the Declaration of Independence, which is a legal document as much as the Constitution is. And the question then becomes, do those documents, properly interpreted and applied, provide the necessary wherewithal, if you will, from a legal perspective at least, from political authority perspective, to deal with these two problems which we are facing in the immediate future? And the answer is yes. Because if you look through these documents, you will see that there are two fundamental powers. They're not named this way. I've taken them out of political philosophy. The power of the purse and the power of the sword. You read much political philosophical writing, and those will come up over and over again in some formulation. Two great powers of government. The power to command wealth in some way, usually to redistribute it through taxes, to pay for public services of one kind or another. And the power of the sword, which is ultimately the power of military coercion, because as Washington is supposed to have said, government is not eloquence, it is fire. The essence of government is to coerce and make those people who will not perform their duties, perform those duties or suffer some other consequence. So those are the two great powers, and they are linked. Because obviously without the power of the purse, you can't pay for the sword, but without the power of the sword, you may not be able to fill the purse. So there's an interrelationship between the two. And we go to the immediate source of all of this. If you read the Declaration of Independence, the source is not the individual or the group, society, and the individual or the group's subjective views about politics. It's something objective. It's something in the nature of man, as it were. And as Jefferson and Adams and the rest of that little committee, Franklin, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, said, the source of all of this, the laws of nature and of nature's God. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That is, we the people operating under this set of objective principles will then generate a governmental or political system. What are the three most important words in the Constitution? We the people. All right? It's fascinating how quickly people jump over the beginning of this preamble and its statement, we the people do ordain and adopt and establish this Constitution as the result of tracing back our authority to the laws of nature and of nature's God, which allow us to exercise this authority as a separate and equal nation among all nations in the earth. The Constitution does not leave us without a remedy here if who takes action to enforce it? We the people, right there.